As the season winds down, the number of storylines only goes up.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. Nick was an angel and took over the show for me last week, and this is our first time really catching up, and we have plenty of great things to talk about on today's episode. So if you're interested in sticking around for that, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcasts. And that way you are up to date on the latest and greatest news as soon as it's available. And today we are going to be talking about Tyler Toffoli and kind of his surprising success this season, as well as the Flames' success last night. With Pride Night, as well as their big win over the LA Kings. And of course, we have to wrap it up with some prospect goodness in Matthew Coronato and just how things are going there so far. Nick, this is all because you were doing research.
Oh yeah, because I wrote like a 2,000-word column comparing Adam Fox and Mika Zibanejad's season because somebody at The Athletic wrote like an 800-word column that was very clearly, I need to get something up today. And I was like, there was one single statistic and Chris Kreider being like, yes, Mika Zibanejad should get Hart votes. Those were the two bits of evidence cited in that article. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go and see like if this is even an argument. And like, there's a real argument. Like Zibanejad's like the third or fourth best player on the Rangers this season. Not like he's having a bad season, but Panarin's been more important. Fox has been more important. And Shesterkin is vitally important to the way they want to play. But in my research, I did also notice that Tyler Toffoli is 8th in the entire league in goals above replacement. Now, goals above replacement is complicated to explain how it's calculated. I would need a dry erase board and a lot of points to kind of show you how each number goes into it. But the entire idea behind goals above replacement is a single number that you can use to compare every single player across the entire league, where you're comparing their even strength offense and defense, their special teams, if they kill penalties, if they're on the power play, and how many penalties they take versus how many penalties they draw. So it gives you a catch-all number to kind of compare them. It has its holes. It can be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? It can over-rely on certain statistics. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason Tyler Toffoli is so high this year is that he's got one of the better shooting percentages of any season in his career. It's the best he's had in a full season since I want to say 2017, 2018, I believe, because he had a single higher one in the 56-game season, but being that that's a smaller sample, a couple points higher in only 56 games, you'd have to figure it would come back down closer to what it is now. But relying so heavily on shooting percentage, it's going to make your goals above replacement higher because the average NHL player does not shoot at 13-14%. I believe the team average across the entire league is about 9.1, 9.2%, something in that ballpark. And that, generally speaking, means if you're shooting above that, you're going to be more valuable than other players. So that's kind of like the drop down why I wanted to dig into this. And then I have got a bunch of other stuff here I wrote down too about kind of what's driving that success.
Yeah, I think that this is such a good thing to talk about because my preseason prediction was that Tyler Toffoli was not going to be strong or suited for that top line. And he reached a new, I believe, career high points for the season as well. So, I think that this is a perfect time to talk about it and to really just cherish Tyler Toffoli's presence on the Calgary Flames.
So 2 things. Number 1, part of it is just the environment changed. You got to remember, when the Flames got him last year, they added him to be a top 9 forward. He was an addition to an already strong team to kind of provide some secondary scoring. And then they lost their 2 best shooters, and they saw an opportunity where this guy's probably our best raw shooting talent, which I would
Mhm.
say Toffoli probably is. It's either him or Lindholm. Either one, I wouldn't argue with you. Best pure shooting talent. And on a team that is starved for shooting talent like the Flames are right now, this is an environment where he's going to get more opportunities to shoot than he would have if, say, Kachuk and Gaudreau were still here. So because he's getting more opportunities to shoot, because he's got that raw shooting talent, he's found a good I don't want to say role for himself because he kind of just, they needed him to. He didn't find this role. The Flames kind of were forced into putting him in this role, but he succeeded. In spite of everything else around him kind of struggling to find its way, he's more than clipped. I think his previous career high in points was 59, and he's at
Yeah.
like 60 something. I think it was 51, 52, something like that a couple years ago, and he's already well clear of that. I believe he's at 69 points in like 75 games, something along that, which is far and away a career high. He's tied for the lead in points on the team with Lindholm. I mean, there's a real argument that Toffoli's having the best season of his career at age 30. And amongst the players on the team, all the underlying numbers are weird with the Flames because, as we've discussed ad nauseum, their entire style is predicated upon volume. So you can kind of cheese the underlying numbers by just throwing a ton of pucks at the net. And it's why he's fourth in pretty much every single one of the underlying metrics, whether it's scoring chances, high danger, expected goals, because Backlund, Mangiapane, and Coleman are the epitome of the Corsi merchant. They're just flooding the pucks on the net, tons of scoring chances, none of them particularly dangerous. None of those guys is a particularly dangerous shooter. So all of the rate stats, he's behind them. But of the high-end players on the team, when you're talking about Toffoli, Kadri, Huberdeau, he's the best of that group, where it's not as much volume, but there's a little more quality.
Yeah.
And because he's got the raw shooting talent, he's able to finish more than, say, pretty much anybody else on the team.
I would be interested to see. I'm sure there is someone that tracks it, but how many times he's hit the post?
Oh yeah, that's something I probably should have looked up, and in hindsight, I will, and I'll have that for you for tomorrow's episode. So that's what's called accountability in journalism. If you don't know something or you get something wrong, you go look it up, and then the next time you publish something, you get it
Yeah.
covered. Yeah, that we'll take care of that tomorrow. But the one other thing in there that I'll point out is when Toffoli's on the ice, the Flames are 2.96 expected goals for as a team, and without him, they're 2.75. So about 7-8% decrease in offensive output when Toffoli isn't on the ice. And that's because he's one of the few guys who actually generates dangerous scoring chances because he's a good shot. He's getting to the areas where a good shooter is going to be able to convert from. And it just speaks to, again, how important he's been and how, even though a lot of what the idea for the Flames was this year hasn't worked out, he's been able to succeed in this environment because the environment changed around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, he was on a podcast last week and talked very highly about Daryl Sutter and his intelligence, and people got upset about it because like things obviously aren't going well. But at the same time, like you have to give credit where credit is due. And I think that Toffoli is one of those players that has found luck under Sutter several times. And I don't want to say like this late in his career because I think he's like 30,
He
but
is 30, but hey, that's in hockey. You got to remember, hockey players age in dog years. You get 7, 8 good years in the NHL. That's a good career.
yeah.
Legitimately, you get 8 good seasons in the NHL. That's a really good NHL career. Most guys, they get a couple hundred games. Tyler Toffoli's 30. He's been in the league since I believe he's 21. That's a good NHL career, and he's not done. He's got a couple more years left in him. So that's a really solid NHL career.
Yeah, so congrats to Tyler Toffoli for exceeding and shattering my expectations. First time in a long time that any hockey player has done that. But coming up next, we are going to talk a little bit about the game last night and just the Pride Night celebrations. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick moment to remind you of the no sweat first bet that FanDuel Sportsbook has to offer. The tournament is heating up, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. So, what does that mean? You get up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you have to do is go to fanduel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to fanduel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. And thank you everyone for hanging out with us today. As always, you can find the show wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and we're here for you, your team, every day. I was heavily considering placing a bid on one of the Pride jerseys.
They're very nice. Of the Pride jerseys that actually were followed through with this year, the Flames did a great job commissioning an artist who took the responsibility seriously, and they clearly gave that person artistic freedom to kind of really cook, because even the numbers on the back where there's just so much detail, and you could tell that there was more than just the bare minimum of we need to check this box off. To have the coach come out and say, hey, this matters, this is important to us, to have individual players volunteer to make themselves available to talk about this to the media, that's encouraging. That's the entire point that a lot of people have missed about this is it's not about any one person. It is about broadening the community and making people feel welcome. That's all this is about. Everybody should be able to participate, whether it's being a fan, playing hockey, whatever. Hockey's better the more people are involved. That's really all this comes down to, and it's why all of these people are so misguided in their frustrations. We're not saying you need to do this, or that. Just saying, don't be mean. Be welcoming. Be accommodating. That's all we're asking for. Right. Everybody's different. Whatever your background, whatever your beliefs are, everybody should be able to be here. That's all this is about.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, the details on that jersey, the Flames hit it out of the park every time with their specialty jerseys. So I was so excited to see the reveal for the Pride jerseys. And just, like you said, the attention to detail, the tying in Calgary's flower, official flower, and just the local birds too. And it was just really nice. And I think that, obviously the artist gets a lot of credit there from me, but I can't help but think about, Dylan Dubé, Uyghur, and Rasmus Anderson just kind of stepping up to the plate and saying, we'll model these. That's fine. I'd love to. And, Sutter can push people's buttons.
Yeah.
But for him to come out again and say, anyone is welcome in my locker room.
Yeah.
I think
that matters. That does matter.
It does.
Especially with the environment the way it is right now. It does matter to have guys who are willing to step up and, hey, don't be mean to them. You want to be mean to someone, you direct it at me, because I'm saying anybody can come in here that if you can play, you are welcome here. If you want to be a fan, you are welcome here. Mm-hmm. That matters when people with a platform step up and say, hey, don't be rude to the people who are just trying to be themselves. You want to complain about someone, complain about me.
Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, I think that a lot of times people just kind of get lost in this as if it's any sort of debate, but it's not. Personally, I don't understand how you can just sit there and say you're not allowed. But that's a whole different story and another can of worms. But that Pride Night wasn't the only thing to go well for the Flames.
Yeah, they won against a good team. The Kings have one of the best. I think the Kings had the best record in the NHL over the last 20 games. Yeah. I remember that being on the broadcast last night and being like, wow, I did not realize the Kings were playing that well, because I don't often stay up for the 10:30 start times. Even if I do, it's background noise while I'm doing something else. That's typically what that 10:30 start time game is. But the Kings are a solid team. The Kings are a pretty solid team, and the Flames played one of their nail-biter classic, anything could go wrong at any given moment, and we're going to hold on for dear life. So hold on to whatever you're sitting in, pinch your butt cheeks, whatever the expression you want to use is for the last 10 minutes of that game. Because everything that could go wrong felt like it was going to go wrong. The goal getting disallowed for offsides that wasn't offsides with 10 seconds left. I was like, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're going to
Yeah.
lose the face-off. The Kings are going to come down and score with less than 5 seconds left, and they're going to go to overtime, and they're going to lose. Everything about the way this season has gone would tell you that one fatal mistake by the officials would be enough to derail a game, even with only 11 seconds left. And they hung on. And Jacob Markstrom had a great game, one of his better games of the season last night, gave them a chance to win. And in a season that feels kind of lost, those games like that matter to the guys on the team. To the bigger picture, their draft position, if they're going to make the playoffs, what we're going to talk about, that doesn't matter. For a team that's been through the ringer this year, games like that matter for just not wanting to phone it in. There's only a handful of games left. Games like that go a long way in establishing good habits and not getting too demoralized in what's kind of been a difficult season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of reminded me of their win against Minnesota.
Yeah.
From like last month, I think.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like hey, we're still alive. Like, we can still do this. I was honestly shocked that they didn't kind of spiral after the first period where they had 2 disallowed goals.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been enough for them to take their foot off the gas. And again,
they stuck with it. They stuck with it, and they found a way in a close game against a good team. Yeah. That you're never going to complain about that. I know there are people who are saying, "Hey, worry more about the draft position now," but you're never going to get guys on the team or the coach to buy into that because they might not be here next year. That is the adage you are always going to hear. I forget who it was. I think it was Marty St. Louis who said it the other day that because they asked him about because Montreal has been playing guys who are making like their NHL debuts. Yeah. Like they called up the one guy from the AHL to play against the Flyers because he was from Pennsylvania. Aww. And they wanted to give him a chance to play in front of his family. And Marty St. Louis was like, well, we're still trying to win games here. I know everybody's worried about the draft pick, if we're going to be able to get Connor Bedard, whatever, but we got to play our games here. There are guys who are playing for spots next year. I'm trying to figure out who's going to be here next year. You're never going to get guys on the team or the coaching staff to buy into the idea of you should worry about the draft position. You might have GMs who are a little more direct in that and saying, hey, we want you to play this guy versus that guy. We want to give him a chance. We want to get a look, whatever. But you're never going to get guys in the league to care about the draft pick. There are guys on the team who are going to say, hey, I'm going to be in competition for a spot with that draft pick in camp this year.
Right.
I don't care about them. I got to worry about what I'm doing. That's why you're never going to get buy-in on that and why winning those types of games matters. The Flames are in that awful like 13-17 range where you don't want to be, but this is what they are. And to win a game like that, it matters a lot to the guys in the room. That's what you can take away from last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, it comes down to them just trying to pull themselves up and just keep any sort of morale going. And, I think it's important, especially with like a few new young guys in the room, with Coronato, Pelletier, even Walker Dewar. Adam Ruzicka, he's still young, even though he's like made the roster a few times, obviously. But like you, again, are kind of in competition with those guys, especially when there are older players that might be leaving and whatnot. So it's just good to see everyone just winning. And it was a nice, fun game.
You're using fun very loosely there.
Yes.
That game was very stressful.
That was very stressful, yes. Yeah. I just
It's only fun because they won. It's only fun
exactly. Had it been any other outcome, I would have said we're not talking about this game.
We would have talked about the Pride celebration in the jerseys. And there wasn't a game last night. They just had a fashion show. They modeled the jerseys, and that's it.
Exactly. That's all that happened. But thankfully, we do get to talk about them bringing home another 2 points and closing the gap against the Winnipeg Jets for that second wildcard spot. It's a good time. A very good time.
Sure. Let's go with that.
And to wrap up the show, we are going to talk about Matthew Coronato and his arrival to the city of Calgary. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today. Make sure you are following along on Twitter. Probably our personal accounts are better to follow at Jess Belmosto and Nick Zararis. Did you watch the intermission interview?
Yes, I did. Because I was originally going to go down and get a snack during that intermission, and then I heard them say, "Oh, we're going to talk to Coronato." I was like, "Okay, I'll wait till after the commercial break to go get that." And no, that is very clearly an overwhelmed child.
Yeah.
We put a lot of stress on these guys, especially in hockey, in basketball, where they're like legitimately children. These are 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are just getting thrown to the wolves, who have minimal media training where they've talked to maybe student media on their campus a couple of times. They've maybe been on TV in game. They haven't really sat down with the lights on with a microphone in their hand and really been put under the microscope. And it's a weird energy where I know there's the tweet that does the rounds every single year before the draft where it's like, I can't wait to watch the teenage boy auction tonight. That's effectively what this is. That is an overwhelmed child who is just throwing excited in every single word, trying not to word vomit at every question that's asked of him. And he will get acclimated over time. It's good they get him up here. Even if he only plays 1 or 2 games, just be in the environment. I know I was reading, I forget whose column I was reading this morning, where they asked Darryl what his recommendation was, and he said, find somebody you want to emulate on the team, and that will help you get situated better. And they asked Toffoli about it, and he's like, yeah, when I first got to LA, Darryl said, look at what Dustin Brown does, look what Justin Williams does, and just watch. If you have questions asked, don't be afraid to ask questions, but look for somebody whose routine you want to replicate, that you feel like you can do a good job emulating. And once you get comfortable, then you can start reaching out and doing like, okay, well, that might work for him, but I might want to do this instead. That's all this is about. This is a 3-week trial run. Get a feel for Calgary, get a feel for the facilities, the staff, the team, your teammates, and just get situated and try not to get overwhelmed by it all, which he clearly is, which he's a child. He's going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, I don't think that there was nothing wrong with his interview other than the fact that his shirt was like a size too small. Yeah. But you know what?
He's probably got 3 dress shirts. He's a 20-year-old.
I thought it was just really nice to see him kind of, talk in a professional setting and just kind of, you get to gauge their personalities and whatnot. I saw a tweet that said Coronato might be in the running for the team's best eyebrows behind Dylan Dubé. And, he just already fits right in. Like, he's already become one with hockey Twitter. And I think that it is very sweet. And it speaks to the level of leadership from Jakob Pelletier that he went and picked him up and took him to lunch. And, I'm sure that it was also like slightly like a convenience factor because he knew he was already scratched. But, when Peltz got here or to Calgary, Huberdeau took him under his wing.
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't that long ago. No. For Pelletier to be modeling that and taking this poor child under his wing to get him acclimated and to kind of show him the ropes, I think that's wonderful. And I think that that's, it's kind of like when you're the new kid in school, you don't know where anything is. But then there's this saving grace of a child that
that's institutional knowledge. That's one of those things you have by having guys who have been around the league a long time. Yeah. And that's always one of the signs of a quality locker room is there are guys who have been around other guys. At one point in Huberdeau's career, someone was like, I will take care of you. I will get you situated. And he realizes that's part of his professional responsibility is now that he's done that for me, I need to pass that forward to someone else. And you keep passing that along. That's the type of institutional knowledge that matters. And that speaks to the flock, the guys who get it, who make a point of saying, hey, someone looked out for me. I need to look out for them and keep this going because it made my acclimation period a lot easier. So I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to help this kid get situated and comfortable here. Because it's a lot. You remember, you're going to another country. You're moving halfway across the world. You're living out of a hotel room. You probably have 1 or 2 suitcases of clothes. You probably don't have a lot of social interaction outside of being at the rink at practice. He hasn't had a practice yet because, he got there in the middle of the day. Once he gets situated, gets a little more familiar with how everything is, then you start, you socializing, you figure out, hey, there's only a couple of weeks of the season left. What am I doing this summer? I know I read that he's going to finish his college classes over the summer and get that taken care of, which is a good thing. But figure it out, get situated. Use this as your running start that by the time camp comes, you're ready to go and you're not as overwhelmed. You're ready to hit the ground running and really get a good shot to make the team. My understanding, and I read this, I want to say last week in someone's column, was he wouldn't have signed the ELC now if he wasn't going to get in at least one game before the season was over. So I'm operating under the assumption the Flames will get him in a game before the season's over.
That would be nice. Did you see the piece on how Daryl Sutter's hand was basically forced?
Yes.
Love that. I'm glad that a teammate went to bat for him.
Yeah, it matters. It
does. Because, Sutter has that reputation for a reason of why he doesn't like the kids. Everyone knows.
Oh, speaking of that, you mentioned it before when we first started talking about it, where if I watched the intermission interview and you got to get a feel for his personality. Yeah, because he hasn't had his personality squeezed out of him yet. He's still a baby. He's yet to go through the grind of several 82-game seasons and playoffs where you're asked the same 10 questions in different forms over the course of 8 months. Yeah. He's yet to have the individuality squeezed out of him. He is still a child. Give it a couple years and then maybe he won't have as much of that nervous, like I just had a cold brew and now I'm on camera vibe.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think that, this is an exciting time. Even if it is going to be a very long off season for Flames fans, at least we know that there's something to look forward to.
That's the good thing about prospects. You can project all your hopes and dreams onto them like they're your own child. Like, the overeager person at Little League, the overeager dad. Yeah, that's what everybody gets to be with the prospect.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to be a helicopter parent with Matthew Coronato now, where we all get to protect him. We all get to tweet into the ether about how come he's not playing with who, how come he's not playing. That's the beautiful thing about prospects, because you don't know what they are. They can be anything.
Exactly. And that is the beauty of the game of hockey. And I think that does it for us today. As always, thank you for hanging out with us on Locked On Flames. You can find the show wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Make sure you turn on the little notifications. I'm pretty sure on Spotify, that's a thing now.
Yes.
And of course, make sure you're following us on YouTube. It's a great way for us to kind of interact and have a discussion, which I think is very important when it comes to just general sports stuff. And if you want to talk more, we are available on Twitter at Jess Belmosto and Nick Zararis. And Nick will be back tomorrow. We're going to, I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet, but that doesn't matter.
That's the beautiful part. It's not even 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. I've got a whole 24 hours to come up with something we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Exactly. We don't know. Could the waiver wires do something? What are we going to see? But everyone, thank you for hanging out with us today, and we will be back tomorrow. And stick around because we have some fun stuff planned for the remainder of the season.